Thank you for staying for the last talk. I'm Jiwon Kim, and majority of this research was done when I was at Emory University. So I'm a political scientist. So I'm going to talk about an example of applying supervised machine learning into classifying the text, the political text. So if you're not a political science, you may be surprised, do states really or countries really make remarks on each other's human rights practices? Isn't that violation of non-intervention? But they actually do very frequently, and in the United Nations, they even have a forum to do that. Or if you're already familiar with such practices, it may be because you heard something along this line that this exercise of shaming is pretty political and is driven by multiple factors, not only what is actually happening in a foreign country. So in order to quantify this political whim, I went to US press statements. And before I talk about that, you may also be wondering, does this actually matter? It's just a matter of speech, not action. But researchers have found that it actually changes the public opinion in target countries in terms of mobilizing people, giving information to people that is not available in the domestic media, or it may actually affect the State Department bureaucracy itself, that once you shame the sender, then the attention goes to the sender and the issue, and you may push forward for that agenda. And scholars also have found that it is related with making more coercive follow-up after the speech, such as military intervention or sanctions. And scholars also have found that shaming is related to foreign direct investment decrease or sovereign credit rating or stock prices decrease. So the data summary, the source is State Department website's archive, and there's no really effort so far that has been done to collect press statements at a mass level. So if you're like me and you have access or you're interested in a new source of data that you have never seen or studied, rather than LLM, it may be, you might want to actually unpack the text and read it yourself, and supervised machine learning may be a better approach for you, but we can talk about that later. But that was the source, and I code these variables at the statement level or at the document level. And today my majority of my presentation is going to be about these last three variables, although it also contains the date of publication and the text itself, who the target country is. I focus on countries as the target because they are the duty bearers who are to provide human rights inside their jurisdiction since 1948. Yes, and yeah, so time span 1997 to 2020, region covers 190 countries. We're going to talk more about what the polarity means, but it's an ordinal categorical variable of -1, 0, and 1. I don't assume equal distances, but this number has given just for describing the data. And the topic is labeled as a multi-hot encoding, so it's a vector of binary variables. So one document can be justice and race and religious minorities if it's a court case against religious minorities. And as I mentioned, this is we fine-tune the model based off of the labels that we have given as human experts. And these are previous undergraduates in Emory University who have helped in evolving codebook. We have initially started from inter-rater reliability of 0.65 to 0.70 across variables, when the conceptualization was not really concrete, but we evolved to 0.80 or above in all of these variables. So without a further ado, first I need to classify into binary categories of, is this human rights related, or is this addressing foreign countries' human rights practices or not, before I classify whether that's a shaming, that's a praising, or whatnot. And country name was masked for training to avoid introducing bias in these classifications. And I use a pre-trained language model called ConfliBERT. I talked with you yesterday that you were a research assistant for this project, but they take BERT and they pre-train with masking and other techniques that had been addressed yesterday with these domain texts like UN websites or databases or international human rights NGOs, statements, think tanks. So, for example, the word people can be perceived differently in Twitter about conspiracy versus government text or NGO text. So, and it actually, binary classification with this model, with not this model, but initializing conflict BERT and fine tuning with the data that we put, the performance is much better than when our baseline is BERT or Roberta. So there's about 1/4 statements that is related to human rights from what we initially collected. And now polarity classification, and I rely on the mechanism of social pressure to the target government, which based off of social theories of international relations. So as countries, as actors, they socialize with each other just like humans do is the basic framework. But for example, the shaming statement works through this negative reinforcement and stigmatization of the violator of human rights norms. For example, this is a 2007 statement against the Burmese regime. And to read out a few bit, it is criticizing violation of political rights and crackdown on citizens' physical rights integrity violations. And although this is not heavily theorized in the international relations space, there also is praising documents which try to positively reinforce a state's membership in the human rights norm community through the changes that they make, like a minimal steps or minimal changes that these states are making. So it's not really necessarily a statement about a state, but a change, a minimal change. So there was no praising document about Canada. Instead, we have one here against Burundi, which scores pretty low in terms of their human rights practices, but they're catching that this court results is actually a renewed momentum for Burundi, and we expect you to do better because you're doing good. And there is something in between. It's not necessarily working social pressure, exerting social pressure through this negative route or positive route, but it is reminding the target country that their current behavior may contradict an identity they aspire to have in the international society, and they appeal to the actor's self-conception as members in good standing within a community. So the highlighted text shows that it is not really about the people. It is they're contrasting the people's will with the government's will, and as it's speaking to the new government, you want to be doing this because your people's will is as such. So with this coding book, we train a ConfliBERT initialized based off of ConfliBERT, we train this model with the data with an ordinal regression head. Yes, and we find for best hyperparameters that gives us the best performance. And again, country name is masked, and here is the result of that classification. And now the last label that has been left is human rights topics. So I adopt the existing categories from existing studies, and there are 8 categories of such, and the results is as such. And it turns out that I did not sample enough documents in the beginning in order to train this multi-label model. So I need to sample more documents. And in order to do that, because we have a very scant category. There's only 91 documents that's talking about LGBTQ rights out of all the press statements. So in order to detect them, I assist the sampling with LLM and tell it to give me stop random sampling once it reaches 50 documents per category, which is needed, which is the minimum number we need for most multi-labeling tasks. Yes, I'm out of time, but these are the findings with such data if you're interested. So praising is concentrated on targets that need most praising or need more positive push. And also shaming is not always more lenient towards the allies, but sometimes it's used as a leverage to push for the change. And there are other results that I'm happy to discuss during the lunch. Thank you so much.
All right, does anybody have questions?
Thank you very much. Do you have any results like whether, let's say, LGBTQ or other issues have more praise or shaming or something
praise
like
or
that?
shaming?
Let's say like you have some topics, you divided into some topics into the press releases. Among them, do you have any result like any topic have more praise or more shaming?
Oh, yes, yes. I don't have it on here, but as far as I can remember, for for the LGBTQ category, it's essentially all shaming, and other categories is pretty evenly spread out. But praising is quite rare for all categories, but the proportion is pretty similar across all categories. Thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you. This is really interesting. I was wondering two things. One is if you've looked at all at social media data in a world where leaders are increasingly using social media to signal some of these things. And the second is if you've considered or looked at all at like domestically state versus federal government claims in different venues and also like maybe between states, if you've explored that at all.
Thank you. That's an interesting direction. I haven't looked at between states or sub-national level, and social media will definitely be interested. But here, I try to focus on the very minimum threshold. So even in the press statements, I excluded the case where there is initiated by press briefings. So I've solely focused on, at least in here, on in the cases where the agenda setting power is solely at the federal government level. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thanks, Jiwon.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess a few thoughts too from the different talks across the different sessions. I mean, it does seem like there's a great interest in trying to figure out exactly what we are doing when we're measuring empathy, whether it's Nilay's talk, Jenna's talk, Hannah's talk from yesterday, many of the others. Like, what exactly are we seeking when we seek out empathy? I think we heard some really interesting ways to think about both qualitatively. Some of the posters focused on, what exactly do we mean by empathy, but also functionally. Whether that's empathy as coupling, as we heard yesterday as well, but in general, thinking about what as a construct we want to say empathy is and the complicated task that is as scientists interfacing with the public. I mean, social psychology, my home discipline, is often described as like the science of human experience, and it has this interesting feature about it that it often recursively feeds on itself, and people react to how we define and carve out things in the world and people's experiences. And so I think one of the interesting things about dovetailing the empathic AI focus with methodology is because of how deeply it interrogates the philosophy of science and the assumptions we bring to bear on some of these things. So, I mean, building on Desmond's talk, I mean, if one thing we could grow from this would be trying to think about like what are the features of AI empathy that we may or may not want, that may be things that put people in danger in some cases or be helpful in validating and useful ways in other cases. I think trying to understand the varieties of empathy that we want and the context in which they're deployed in could be something for us to explore. But I guess our thoughts would be that for this closing session, if there are topics that interest you, we can try to cultivate conversations and grow something out of this, whether it's new papers, new project ideas. I think we might try to, we'll close down the recording for this part afterwards, because we don't want to all be seen eating lunch on camera, I think. But if you have ideas, one thought is to come to the front and pitch ideas, or if you just want to form little working groups, whether it's about empathy and AI, or empathy training, or AI new methodologies, let's try to use this last couple of hours to really grow something. The last conference we had, we grew out this volume of interdisciplinary conversations, and it would be great to walk away from this event with new connections, new collaborations. Part of two of the main funders for this, the Social Science Research Institute and the Center for Socially Responsible AI, they really like forming these connections. And I think CSOTA and the Consortium on Moral Decision Making that I run, we also like to try to bridge these divides and connections. And so if we can build something out of this, let's try to do so. Is there anything else we should say at this point, aside from encouraging folks to? Yeah. Well, thank you all. Thank you to the sponsors. Thank you to you both for helping out. And everyone who's come from near and far to be part of this event. This is bigger than the last event, and I'm excited by all the conversations we've seen so far. The Rock, the McCourtney Institute for Democracy, CSOTA, the Consortium, College of Liberal Arts. Lots of folks want to see conversations like this happening. And so, yeah.
And thank you all, and keep in touch.
Very good.